Ma'am, that's my seat. The words were calm but steady. Malik Carter stood in the narrow aisle of Aurora Airlines Flight 229, holding out his boarding pass. The number 2A was printed in bold ink. The blonde woman sitting there, Charlotte Whitmore, didn't even look at it. She crossed her legs, her diamond bracelet flashing under the cabin lights. "Oh, don't be ridiculous. I've already settled in. I'm sure you can find another seat." Malik didn't move. "No, this is my seat." Charlotte finally glanced at him, her eyes traveling over his hoodie and jeans, her smile tight with condescension. "First class has standards, you know. Are you sure you didn't misread your ticket? Economy is back there." She waved vaguely toward the curtain behind them. A few passengers chuckled under their breath. Malik ignored it. "I'm sure. Seat 2A belongs to me." Charlotte let out a sharp laugh. "Well, I'm a Diamond Elite member. I specifically requested this seat. Mistakes happen all the time. Why don't you be reasonable and let me stay?" Malik's patience thinned. "Reasonable would be you moving out of the seat I paid for." Charlotte's face hardened. She jabbed the call button above her head. "Then we'll let the crew settle this." The soft chime rang out. What would you do if this happened to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories that expose injustice and courage, hit subscribe and join our community. Moments later, flight attendant Lena Park arrived, her smile fading quickly as she took in the scene. She bent towards Charlotte first, her voice warm. "Mrs. Whitmore, is there a problem?" Charlotte gestured dramatically. "Yes, this man insists I'm in his seat. I've explained the mistake, but he refuses to cooperate." Lena straightened and turned to Malik, her tone colder. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" Malik handed it over. She scanned it, her expression tightening when she saw the truth. 2A, Malik Carter. But instead of apologizing, she forced a smile toward Charlotte. "Mrs. Whitmore, thank you for your patience. Mr. Carter, we can move you to 3C. Lots of legroom, very comfortable. I'll make sure you get complimentary service for the inconvenience." Malik frowned. "No, this isn't an inconvenience. This is my seat." Lena's tone sharpened. "Sir, please lower your voice. Other passengers are trying to relax. It would be easier for everyone if you just accepted the reassignment." Charlotte leaned back smugly. "See? Even she agrees. Why make a scene?" Malik's voice stayed steady. "I'm not moving." Lena's smile vanished. "If you continue to be difficult, I'll have to involve the captain, and he will not be as patient." Charlotte smirked. "Yes, call the captain. Maybe he can remind this man how things work in first class." Phones started to lift, passengers pretending to check messages while recording. The air in the cabin thickened with tension. Lena pressed her lips together and gave Malik a hard look. "Stay here. The captain will deal with you." Malik exhaled slowly. He'd faced this before, in boardrooms, in hotels, in restaurants. But something told him this time would be different. This time the cameras were already watching. The cabin was silent after Lena's last words. "Stay here. The captain will deal with you." Charlotte smirked, folding her arms like she had already won. Malik stood in the aisle, still holding his boarding pass, calm but resolute. Moments later, Captain Daniel Hayes entered the cabin. His polished shoes struck the floor in sharp steps. He went straight to Charlotte first, offering her a polite nod. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Captain Hayes. What's the issue here?" Charlotte's voice was sweet and exaggerated. "Oh, Captain, thank goodness. I was just trying to enjoy my flight, but this man keeps insisting I'm in his seat. I've told him it must be a mistake, but he refuses to move." The captain finally turned to Malik, and his expression changed instantly. His eyes flicked over the jeans, the simple carry-on bag. His voice dropped hard and cold. You," he said, "what exactly are you doing in this cabin?" Malik held out his boarding pass. "Seat 2A. This is my ticket." Hayes glanced at it, then gave a sharp laugh under his breath. "You're telling me you booked 2A? First class?" He shook his head slowly. "Son, seats like this aren't cheap. Are you sure you didn't wander into the wrong section?" Gasps rippled through the rows. Malik's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "I'm sure. This is my seat." The captain's eyes narrowed. Look, let's not play games. Mrs. Whitmore is one of our most trusted customers. You don't look like the kind of man who belongs here. Why don't you save yourself the embarrassment and move to 3C before I call security? Charlotte leaned back, satisfied. Exactly what I've been saying. He doesn't belong in first class. Malik's patience was thinning. I don't care how it looks. The boarding pass says 2A. That's my seat, and I'm not moving. Hayes stepped closer, lowering his voice but sharpening every word. Listen carefully. I've been flying for 30 years, and I can tell when someone's trying to take advantage of the system. You may have found a way to get your hands on this seat, but the reality is, men like you usually end up back in coach where you belong. Don't push your luck. The words hung heavy in the air. Men like you. Phones lifted higher. A young woman in row 5 whispered, "Did he just say that?" while her live stream comments shot up the screen. From row 3, Isabel Torres, the journalist, rose halfway from her seat. Her voice was sharp as a blade. "Captain Hayes, I'm recording this. Did you just imply that this passenger doesn't belong in first class because of how he looks? That sounds a lot like racism." The captain's face hardened. "Put that phone down before I have you removed too." Isabel's eyes narrowed. "Go ahead. I'd love to publish the story. Airline captain threatens journalist for filming racial discrimination in first class. See how fast that spreads." Hayes turned back to Malik, his voice almost a growl now. "Last chance. Move to another seat quietly, or you'll be escorted off this plane. Believe me, you don't want me to take it that far." Malik met his gaze, unflinching. "No, Captain, I'm not moving. And if you think you can drag me off this flight, you're making the biggest mistake of your career." The tension snapped like a live wire. The passengers could feel it. Something far bigger than a seat dispute was about to unfold. The cabin buzzed with whispers. Phones were raised higher, glowing like tiny spotlights in the dimmed first-class cabin. Captain Hayes's words still echoed. "Men like you usually end up back in coach where you belong." Charlotte smirked, arms folded, her diamond bracelet glittering like a badge of victory. Lena hovered nearby, glaring at Malik as though he were the problem, not the woman in his seat. "Captain," Malik said evenly, "this isn't about appearances. This is about facts. My boarding pass says 2A. That's my seat." Hayes's lip curled. "You think waving a piece of paper proves anything? I've seen people print fake tickets before. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried to scam their way into a seat above their pay grade." Gasps filled the air. Isabel Torres, the journalist, shot to her feet now, phone raised high. "So let me get this straight. You're accusing a paying black passenger of faking his ticket, while a white woman is sitting in his seat with no boarding pass to show for it. That's the story here." Hayes's face turned red. "Sit down, ma'am, before I have security meet this plane at the gate." The young live streamer in row 5 shouted out, "Too late, Captain. 2,500 people are watching this live." "Keep talking." Charlotte turned on the girl, her voice shrill. "Stop recording me this instant. You people just want drama." The phrase hung heavy. "You people." The cabin let out a collective gasp. And Malik finally stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp enough to cut the air. "Captain Hayes, Mrs. Whitmore, Lena, you've all made one thing clear. You don't believe I belong here. You've called me a liar, a fraud, a man out of his place. But you couldn't be more wrong." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Calmly, deliberately, he opened an app with the Aurora Airlines logo across the top. The screen glowed bright, displaying a dashboard no regular passenger had ever seen. Charlotte frowned. "What's that supposed to prove? That you know how to download an app?" Malik's finger hovered over the screen. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "This isn't the regular passenger app. This is the operations control system, and there's only one reason I have access to it." He tapped once. The screen shifted. "CEO override ground flight." Gas rippled through the cabin. Lena's mouth dropped open. Hayes blinked in disbelief. "What kind of trick is this?" the captain barked. You expect me to believe you have access to my systems? Impossible. Malik looked him square in the eye. Not impossible. Reality. Because I don't just have a seat on this plane, I have the entire airline. The cabin went dead silent. Charlotte stammered. You can't mean... Malik's voice was ice. Yes. Through my company, I own 51% of Aurora Airlines, which means every plane in this fleet, every employee in this uniform, and every decision made in this cabin ultimately falls under my authority. Phones shot higher. The live stream count spiked past 5,000. Isabel Torres's voice was steady with awe. He's not bluffing. He just pulled up a CEO override screen. The captain's radio crackled. Flight 229. We're showing a CEO override request on your system. Please confirm. Hayes froze. His face turned pale. Control. Repeat that? Confirmed, the voice replied. CEO override logged by Malik Carter. Flight 229. Return to gate immediately. The captain's hands trembled slightly as he turned back to Malik. His harsh tone had evaporated, replaced with fear. You're the owner? Malik slipped the phone back into his pocket, his eyes locked on Charlotte. Yes, and the irony is the seat you tried to take from me? It belongs not just to me, but to the man who signs your paychecks. Charlotte's face drained of color. Her diamond bracelet suddenly seemed small, her confidence shattered. Malik leaned in slightly, his voice quiet but lethal. You thought I didn't belong, but I don't just belong here. I built this place. Phones buzzed. Comments streamed in online. The world outside the plane was already watching. And inside the cabin, the balance of power had shifted completely. The engines rumbled lower as Flight 229 slowed, beginning its return to the gate under the CEO override. The announcement chimed, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We've been instructed to return to the terminal." Whispers rippled through the cabin. Passengers leaned into one another, wide-eyed. The live-stream chat scrolled like wildfire. This captain is done. CEO in disguise? This is insane. Charlotte about to get dragged worldwide. Charlotte's face was frozen in shock, lips parted, her once confident posture crumbling. Lena clutched her service tablet tightly, the blood draining from her cheeks. Captain Hayes stood stiff, his jaw clenched, the harsh authority gone from his voice. Malik rose, stepping into the center of the aisle. The phones all turned to him now. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every syllable carried weight. You all just witnessed something I've faced my entire life. People looking at me and deciding I don't belong. Not because of what I've done, not because of what I can afford, but because of what I look like. He turned, his eyes locking on Lena. A flight attendant saw my boarding pass, but instead of standing up for what was right, she told me to move. Lena's mouth opened. I was just... Malik cut her off. No, you weren't just anything. You chose comfort over fairness. You chose bias over duty. He shifted his gaze to Captain Hayes. And you, a man trusted with lives, instead of protecting the truth, you accused me of lying. You said men like me don't belong in first class. You said my ticket must be fake. The captain's face reddened, but he said nothing. Malik turned toward Charlotte, whose diamond bracelet trembled on her wrist. And you assumed that my presence here was a mistake. You told me to go back. You said I didn't look the part. You said, you people. Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean... Malik's voice was calm, cold. You meant every word. You just didn't expect the cameras to catch it. The live streamer shouted from row 5. Over 10,000 viewers now! You're going viral! Isabel Torres, her phone still raised, spoke clearly. Mr. Carter, the world deserves to hear this. Say what needs to be said. Malik nodded, his chest rising as he drew a slow breath. Then he spoke, not just to the cabin, but to the thousands already watching online. This is what discrimination looks like in 2025. It doesn't always wear a hood or shout slurs. Sometimes it wears a uniform. Sometimes it pours champagne in first class. Sometimes it hides behind smiles, and words like cooperate or compromise. But it's the same poison, and it ends today. The cabin erupted in murmurs. Phones shook slightly in trembling hands, catching every word. Malik continued, I didn't build my company, buy this airline, and fight my way into these spaces just to be told I don't belong. I do belong. Not because of a ticket, not because of money, but because I earned it every step, every fight, every battle against people who looked at me in solace. He paused, scanning the faces around him. To everyone watching, remember this. Dignity is not a privilege. Respect is not optional. And nobody gets to decide your worth but you. A wave of applause broke out in the cabin. Passengers who had stayed silent before were clapping now, some even standing. The live stream comment feed flooded with fire emojis, clapping hands, and calls for justice. Charlotte shrank back in her seat, trying to hide behind her handbag. Lena stared at the floor. Captain Hayes looked like a man already condemned. Malik took one final step closer to Charlotte's seat. His voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. You tried to take my seat, Mrs. Whitmore, but today the world saw who really doesn't belong. The applause swelled louder. Cameras flashed. The live stream hit 20,000 viewers. And as the plane rolled back toward the gate, everyone knew this moment was already bigger than one flight. It was history in the making. The plane rolled to a stop at the gate. The engines quieted to a low hum. The seatbelt sign chimed, but nobody moved. All eyes were fixed on Malik. Charlotte sat frozen, her face pale, eyes darting nervously at the glowing phones aimed her way. Lena's hands fidgeted with her service tablet, while Captain Hayes's jaw clenched like a man waiting for a verdict. The intercom crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you remain seated while ground staff assists with a special situation. Special situation. Everyone knew what that meant. The cabin doors swung open. A group of uniformed Aurora Airlines executives stepped on board, trailed by security personnel, and to everyone's shock, a small group of reporters, cameras already rolling. At their head was David Chen, the airline's chief operating officer. His eyes immediately locked on Malik. He strode forward, extending his hand. Mr. Carter, sir, I apologize for this disgraceful incident. Malik shook his hand firmly, his expression calm. It's not me you should be apologizing to first. Chen turned, his face darkening as he looked at Hayes, Lena, and Charlotte. Is it true? You tried to remove our CEO from his own seat? Hayes's mouth opened, but no words came. Lena stammered. I was just trying to de-escalate. Charlotte snapped. How was I supposed to know who he was? He didn't look. She stopped herself, realizing too late what she had said. Gasps shot through the cabin. Chen's voice was ice. Didn't look like what? A first-class passenger? Or an owner of this airline? Either way, you just showed the world exactly who you are. The journalist pressed forward, cameras flashing, microphones extended. Isabel Torres stood too, her voice strong. Mr. Carter, can you confirm what happened here today? That you, as Aurora Airlines' majority owner, were told you didn't belong in first class because of your race? Malik faced the cameras. His voice was steady, powerful. Yes, today I was told I didn't belong. Not by strangers on the street, but by the very people meant to serve and protect passengers. They saw a black man in first class and assumed he was a mistake. But what they didn't see is the truth. I'm not a mistake. I'm the owner. The reporters erupted with questions. Flashes lit the cabin. Live stream notifications buzzed from a dozen phones. Chen turned to Hayes and Lena. You're both suspended, effective immediately, pending full investigation. Hayes's face flushed. But sir, No excuses, Chen snapped. You disgraced this airline and its leadership. Lena's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Chen turned last to Charlotte. Mrs. Whitmore, your elite membership is revoked. You're banned from Aurora Airlines flights indefinitely. Charlotte's jaw dropped. You can't do that. I've been flying with you for years. Chen's voice was calm but final. You're not our customer anymore. Charlotte shrank back into her seat, trembling. The passengers around her avoided eye contact, disgust written on their faces. Malik stepped forward, facing the cameras one final time. This isn't just about me. This is about every person who's ever been told they don't belong. Every person who's been treated as less because of the color of their skin. Today it happened in seat 2A. Tomorrow it could happen anywhere. But we have the power to change it, and I intend to make sure Aurora Airlines leads that change. The cabin erupted in applause, louder than before. Passengers stood, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Phones shook as viewers around the world watched live. Malik gave one final nod, then turned to Chen. Let's make sure this never happens again. Chen nodded firmly. We will, sir. Starting now. As Malik walked back to his rightful seat 2A, the cameras followed. Charlotte turned her face away, Lena sank into the galley, and Captain Hayes stared at the floor broken. The balance of power had shifted permanently. And by the time Flight 229's passengers finally disembarked, the world beyond the terminal was already buzzing with the story. Black CEO humiliated on his own airline, then turns the tables. The jet bridge was crowded before a single passenger had even stepped off. Camera flashes exploded. Microphones jutted forward like spears. The live streamer's phone feed surged past 100,000 viewers. When Malik finally appeared, walking calmly down the bridge with his carry-on at his side, the crowd erupted. Reporters shouted over one another. Mr. Carter, how does it feel to be racially profiled on your own airline? Will Captain Hayes and the crew face charges? Do you plan to fire them personally? Malik stopped in the middle of the flashing chaos. He didn't flinch. He raised one hand and the noise died down. My story is no different from thousands of others, he said, his voice steady, carrying over the crowd. Today I was profiled. I was doubted. I was insulted. Not because of my actions, not because of my ticket, but because of my skin. But what made today different is that the world was watching. And now the world can't look away. The reporters leaned closer, pens scratching, cameras whirring. I'm not here to ruin lives, Malik continued. I'm here to change systems. Captain Hayes, Lena, and Mrs. Whitmore showed us exactly what's broken a culture where bias is tolerated, where dignity depends on how you look, where power excuses prejudice. That ends today. He gestured towards the Aurora Airlines logo behind him. As of this moment, Aurora Airlines will launch a full anti-discrimination task force. Every crew member, every captain, every manager will undergo training. Any future acts of bias will mean immediate suspension. And passengers, every passenger will be treated with equal dignity, no matter who they are. Applause broke out even from some bystanders. The live stream feed filled with clapping emojis, hearts, and comments like, finally someone with power saying it plain, and history being made. A reporter called out, what about Charlotte Whitmore? Malik's expression hardened just slightly. Charlotte made her choices. The world has already judged her, and her words will follow her longer than I ever could. Sure enough, by that moment, clips of Charlotte saying, you people were already trending worldwide. News sites ran headlines. Entitled passenger humiliates black CEO, loses everything. Aurora Airlines owner confronts racism at 30,000 feet. Charlotte herself was nowhere to be seen. She had slipped out a side exit, her diamond bracelet hidden under her sleeve. Her once perfect image shattered in hours. Malik turned back to the cameras. His final words were clear, unshakable. Dignity isn't up for debate. Respect isn't optional. And if you think someone doesn't belong in a space, ask yourself why. Because chances are it's not them who doesn't belong. It's you. The crowd erupted in applause. Phones buzzed. Reporters shouted questions. But Malik simply walked past them, his head high, his stride calm and certain. Behind him, Aurora Airlines executives followed. Ahead of him, the press lights glowed like spotlights. Malik Carter had come onto Flight 229 as just another passenger. He left it as something much more. a symbol. And as the live stream hit 500,000 viewers, one final caption scrolled across the screen. He didn't just own the seat, he owned the sky.